Social behavior is defined as an action that affects the fitness of both the actor and the recipient of that behavior. For social behavior to be favored in natural selection, benefits for the actor's gene pool must outweigh the cost to self. Generally, selfish behaviors are favored, therefore acting for the good of a population is not an inherent behavior because the hero individual puts themselves at a lower fitness. Then how do castes develop? This is evident through the life cycle of a bee. Birth leading to 4 possible outcomes. Few select males and queen bees are fertile, while workers and soldiers are sterile. Darwin asked, how are genes for sterile castes transmitted? This is known as Darwin's dilemma. The neuters of the species could have been fatal to his entire theory of evolution by natural selection. How could their innate behaviors be passed on to workers and soldiers if they cannot propagate their own kind?
The solution to Darwin's problem is solved when he figured out that selection may apply to a family as well as the individual. The fertile males and females of the same community flourish and transmit to their offspring the ability to produce sterile members. This process was repeated many times until there was an approximately equal amount of sterile and fertile females. This situation can refer to the process of kin selection, where a social action is favored because of its beneficial effects on relatives.
The monogamy hypothesis. What causes the transition from independent breeding, where individuals pursue their own selfish interests, to cooperate breeding? Key factor driving the transition from solitary individuals to complex society is the number of males that a female mates with. Consider an individual. If the mother of that individual is monogamous, mated with only one male, then the individual will share a half of its genes with both its potential offspring and its siblings. Therefore, helping to raise siblings is equal to raising offspring, and cooperation could help tip the balance in favor of helping to raise these siblings. If the individual mother mates with multiple males, relatedness to the siblings will be lower than relatedness to its own offspring, and selection for offspring will be weaker.
So according to the monogamy hypothesis, we found that higher promiscuity leads to a loss of cooperative breeding. But this can be ameliorated by kin discrimination. But what is kin discrimination? Kin discrimination is where among the offspring or among relatives you discriminate against how closely related you are to another relative. So, for example, you would be more closely related to your full sibling than your half-sibling. Another thing that Cornwallis brings up in his research proposal is that species with intermediate promiscuity have higher rates of kin discrimination. Cornwallis states that species with low promiscuity have no variation in relatedness because all of the offspring are equally related, and thus kin discrimination is not selected as often. On the other hand, species with high promiscuity also have offspring with limited variance because all of the offspring have low relatedness. Thus, species with intermediate promiscuity have the highest variance in relatedness, and thus are more selected towards kin discrimination.
The level of promiscuity was significantly lower in cooperatively breeding species than non-cooperatively breeding species. Overall, promiscuity rates were 3 times greater in non-cooperative species than in cooperative species. The transition to cooperative breeding is more likely to occur in less promiscuous species. Transitions to cooperation were associated with low promiscuity, and increases in promiscuity have led to the breakdown of cooperation.